What's up, guys? Welcome to Late Night Niner Talk. Today I'm joined by a very special guest. If you are a 49ers fan and you watch 49er content creators, you've probably seen my guest on multiple different channels. He does a show, NWO show, on 49ers First Takes channel every week. I'm joined by the one, the only 49er minded who also has the best theme song or the best intro song in 49ers, in the 49ers content creation, I don't know how to
Universe.
term it, but you
Universe.
get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. Has the best intro. Always love listening to that intro. You can't skip that intro. You just can't. It's just a fire intro. But without further ado, I would like to introduce my guest, Bashar, aka 49er Minded. How you doing tonight on this
Doing
late
good,
night
man. Doing
episode?
good. I was running some last minute evening errands, picking up some grabbing the Friday specials over at Safeway, and I was driving home and I get a text, and the store is right by my house, and he's like, "Hey, can you come on my show?" And I was like, I'm not doing anything, and most of my equipment's pretty much set up. Sure, I'll jump on. So here
Yeah.
I am. And for the record, I do have a brand new intro. I'm not sure if you caught it, but the brand new intro, in my opinion, is a little nicer, a little bit better because there's an actual professional rapper on there, or not a famous one, but a 49er rapper. You could say his name's 49er dude. He does the whole song, and he did an excellent job on it. He killed it. The song itself is called 49er Minded, and it's a whole new graphical intro as well. So definitely
It's
check
it's
that
it's
out.
fire. It's fire. I can't even lie. Both intros are fire. I don't know, like I kind of missed the old one because the old one was like something like the old one is just it just brings back a lot of memories.
It's
But the new
nostalgic.
one is nostalgic, exactly. But the new one is also great. Like you could argue that the new one has a newer, like cooler style to it, but the old one is just very nostalgic.
And for the record, when I end my shows, I finish it off with the original intro.
All
So
right, then
that's
that's
kind of
great.
like my
That's great.
ending. So
Yeah.
you get the best of both worlds.
Yep. I want to say what's up to the chat real quick. We got Kelts Chronicles in here, another Niner content creator, phenomenal Niner content creator. Go check out his channel if you haven't already. We got 559er. What's up to you as well? Thank you for tuning in. We have John V. Appreciate you for tuning in. And we got Swan, obviously. We all know
Swan
him.
song.
A lot of you guys know him. He's in every Niners chat, supports a lot of Niners channels, and he was on with 49 Faithful Lee podcast for their 1 year anniversary. And he's been on a lot of channels recently. But shout out to
He
Swan
doesn't even have
lately.
a channel, and he comes on people's channels.
Yeah.
But on my
So
channel,
Swan has been killing it lately. But let's jump right into it. Obviously, the biggest topic of yesterday or the biggest topic of today was Trey Lance and his preseason performance against the Houston Texans. But overall, what was your evaluation of Trey Lance's performance? He went 7 for 11 through 49 yards. What did you think? Do you think the offensive line? Do you think he didn't have enough time to throw the football? Do you think Trey Lance could have made better decisions? Do you think Trey Lance could have done anything better? What was your overall evaluation, or what was your overall reaction to Trey Lance's preseason performance?
yeah. My overall reaction, I wasn't pulling my hair out or banging against the wall or yelling and screaming and cursing or anything like that because there were times where he made some decent, okay throws. It wasn't that bad. I mean, considering the circumstances, when you take the snap and you got all these people in your face, I mean, what else can you do? The one throw that kind of was alarming initially when I first saw it during the game. I believe it was a play action pass, if I'm not mistaken. It was definitely a rollout to the right, and he had somebody chasing him down, and he tried to throw it to Ayuk, I believe, on a little crossing pass, and the ball hit the ground. And when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that looked kind of bad. That wasn't all that great, but I know he was under pressure. But I know Jesse Naylor put up some tweet and said, "Oh, by the way, just to let you guys know, this pass was tipped." So I was like, "Okay." I feel a little bit better about that play. It's not all his passes aren't always going to get batted down, and so And then on that Debo play, when I was watching the game, I wasn't yelling, screaming, throwing things at the TV, saying pass interference. I thought in the back of my head it might have been interference, but I was like, I don't want to be a homer about it. But later I watched the replay, and lo and behold, me and a whole bunch of other people agreed that I forgot the cornerback's name that was guarding him. It wasn't Stingley, it was somebody else. On that Debo Samuel deep pattern, the guy was grabbing him with his right arm. So and 9 times out of 10 that'd have been interference. The ball placement was fine. I like the ball placement on the pass. Whenever I see Trey Lance throw a deep ball, the ball placement is usually there. The accuracy is usually there. and it's a really nice looking deep ball. I mean, I remember when on pre-draft they were showing some random videos and highlights of Trey Lance in college, and they were saying from time to time that he has a really strong arm, obviously, but from time to time his deep ball accuracy wasn't so great. But so far since he's been a Niner, I mean, it's all be a small sample size. I mean, whenever I see him throw the deep ball, the accuracy looks like it's there. It's not, it looks like it's improved in comparison to what he had in college. So, you know, Trey Lance didn't really have much of a running game to help him out either. There were times where Sermon got a few good runs, but then when you pull up the overall stats for Sermon, he only averaged what 2.5 a carry. That's not really going to make your quarterback feel all that comfortable. Um, so so you know what though, it's part of me was thinking while I was watching the game, I was like, you know what, it's cool. It's not cool, but I mean, it's a good experience for Trey Lance to have some pressure in his face on these type situations to see how he responded, to see how he responds. That is, he didn't throw any picks. Aside from that pass that hit the ground, which later we found out was tip, I didn't really see any bad throws. And I know there were some couple of Trey haters on Twitter that were saying, "Oh, that pass to Kittle was horrible." Like, dude, it hit his hands. At the end of the day, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't exactly right to him for an easy catch. He went out a little bit to get it, but 9 times out of 10, Kittle should have caught that pass. So I'm not. I know Trey definitely has things to work on. Like any young quarterback, you're going to see mistakes. But in general, with Trey Lance, this is how I feel from him throughout the season. You're going to see a whole lot more good than bad. But the line does have to get it right. Did we have Trent Williams out there? No. I'll say this though. Brandel, we're probably going to get to this later. Brandel looked pretty nice overall. And hopefully, when the regular season starts, our real O line will just step it up, and the cohesion will come, and we won't be having these conversations of Trey Lance not having time to throw, and running for his life.
Yep. I mean, considering that the O line, especially the tackles, did not have their greatest game, I'm talking about Jalen Moore, who got beat by Jerry Hughes on numerous occasions. I think he did relatively well. He didn't throw interception. He didn't throw an interception. He went 7 for 11, which isn't bad. Had a 73% um, quarterback rating. It wasn't bad, right? Considering that the offensive line, especially the tackles, I thought the interior, the guards weren't that bad, but I think the tackles got beat, especially Jalen Moore. I mean, Jalen Moore was almost getting beat like 2 or 3 times a drive. Like, he was getting beat constantly. So obviously the offensive line, you could argue the offensive line was atrocious yesterday. It was atrocious. And obviously we know Mike McGlinchey and Trent Williams weren't playing, and if you include those guys in the lineup, I think the offensive line will definitely be better. But you can't really expect much from your quarterback, or you can't really expect your quarterback to do much when his offensive line can't protect him. I saw a picture yesterday on Twitter of Trey dropping back and three defensive ends coming right at him. I don't know if you saw the picture also. Three defensive ends coming right at him, and all three offensive linemen on the Niners were getting beat. Two tackles, and then I think it was Burford who was also getting beat. Like, what can you expect Trey Lance to do there? Right? And some people, like, I've heard people say, oh, Trey Lance didn't do anything with his legs. Like, Trey Lance, how much can you really expect from Trey Lance? Like, Trey Lance evaded as much as he can, but you can't really expect Trey Lance to, be Superman when his offensive line can't protect him. And I've made this case before. If a quarterback doesn't have an offensive line that can protect him and give him enough time to throw the football, that most likely that quarterback won't be successful. And I always go back to that Patrick Mahomes Super Bowl, and then even looking at last year with that Bengals Super Bowl when Joe Burrow didn't especially nearing that end of the game where his offensive line wasn't protecting him, and then Joe Burrow had to force a play, game over, couldn't convert on fourth down. Rams win the Super Bowl, and that was happening the whole season. And the same thing with Mahomes. Mahomes had injuries on that offensive line, and then obviously they couldn't protect him, and Mahomes couldn't throw the ball and didn't have enough time to throw the ball. So it's hard for a quarterback when you don't have your offensive line to protect him. So I can't really even take away too much from this game. But do I think he played well because his offensive line was struggling and he didn't throw an interception? Yeah, I think he played relatively well. And there's this one controversial pass that everyone has been talking about that Debo Samuel pass. I think that Debo Samuel pass on 75% of the time is a pass interference call. 75% of the time, and if it was a regular season game, it's a pass interference call. Debo got no separation on that play. Now, I think Lance probably could have put it a little bit in front of him, but it's still he still put the ball in a place where Debo Samuel could make a play on it. It wasn't inaccurate. It wasn't out of bounds. He put it in a place where he gave Debo the opportunity where Debo can go and make a play on it. But I think it was a no call on that play. I think it was a no call. I think it would have been pass interference. But was it? Could it have? I would say could it have been a better ball? Sure, but was it still a pretty darn good ball that he threw to Debo Samuel, and he gave Debo Samuel the opportunity to go and make a play? Yeah, he definitely did, but there was a pass interference that the referees didn't call. But I think I think I can't really take away too much from this Trey Lance performance. I think he played well for the circumstances that he was in. But this offensive line, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but this offensive line just has to perform better. Now, obviously, we know Williams and McGlinchey didn't play, but if Banks is the long term, if Banks is going to be your starter this season, or Burford's going to be your starter this season, who knows how that's going to go, because you need to protect your quarterback. Now, Trey Lance, obviously, we know he's mobile, and unlike Jimmy Garoppolo, who the thing is, I'll say this: people have been saying that if Jimmy Garoppolo was playing, Jimmy Garoppolo would have died. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo, I look at it from both ways. Jimmy Garoppolo is good at getting the ball out quickly, so that's one side, that's an upside. But yes, if the defensive line got to him, Jimmy Garoppolo probably gets sacked. But Jimmy Garoppolo also gets the ball out quickly. So, I mean, I don't know how I would necessarily determine if Jimmy Garoppolo was out there yesterday. But overall, I would say, to finalize, what I'm going to say is that Trey Lance, for what the circumstances was, he played relatively well.
Yeah, and again, he was barely out there. And on that one drive, I believe it was the second series that he had the ball that they were marching up the field. It was a series where Sermon actually was getting some good runs in. And I was like, okay, Sermon's looking like he wants to be on the team. He wants to make the roster. And lo and behold, it's 4th and 1. And obviously, we never like the play call when it goes bad, right? But it was 4th and 1, and I see Trey Lance hand it off to Sermon. And then I see Trey Lance pretend like he's gonna run an option, but obviously he handed it out to Sermon, and Trey Lance had at least a good like 6 or 7 yards of daylight where he easily got the first down. That's how I saw before a defender was going to come up to him. And then there's just the pressure up the middle just totally collided back into Sermon, and Sermon had no shot to get the extra yard get the 1 yard that he needed to get. So I'm not really going to blame it on Sermon on that play, because the pressure on that one was just bad. And you mentioned Jalen Moore, and he looked, in my opinion, he looked a lot better last year than this year. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I was on the Jalen Moore train, right? But what I've heard from training camp, and then what I saw yesterday, was that at tackle, that's just not his position.
Like, why do our guys get worse on the O line? Like when we brought in Justin School, I believe it was in the 2019 season, there was a game where both McGlinchey and Staley were out. And I forgot who played on what side, but I remember we had, I believe it was Brunskill on the right side. And I think we may have had, I believe it was Skew on the left side where Joe Staley plays. And they filled in pretty well. I mean, I believe it was for a couple of games they had him in there as the starters. And I was like, wow, this guy's cool. He's a young guy and, some obscure player. And he looks like he's got a lot of room to grow, And I was thinking the same about Brunskill. And these guys just like, it's like, oh, yeah, our young offensive lineman, you expect them to progress, and they just take like 4 or 5 steps backward. It's just so irritating for me. And for me, I'm passionate about this O-line business because, when I first started playing my freshman year, I played D-line, but they switched me over to O-line. It's my sophomore year. And I want to see our O-line succeed so bad. And I see the potential in Banks. I see the potential in Burford. Obviously more of the fans, Burford's more popular with the fans for some reason. People don't like Burford because he was redshirted last year and he didn't step on the field. So, but for example, there was a play where I saw a few times actually. I saw in the Packers game. I saw one play in the Packers game where Burford and Banks both pancake their guys on a run play. Saw another play this past game where Aaron Banks pancaked somebody on a run play. And it's encouraging to see those, but what we need the consistency. Obviously, Brandel, I didn't really notice it during the game too much because I wasn't focusing too much. But Swan Song, who was a big proponent of Brandel, has told me that in the past, and I guess he's kind of trying to remind me about it. He posted like, "Oh, Jake Brandel had had the highest PFF rating out of all the 49ers offensive line. He had an 82 rating, which is pretty nice. And you go back and watch a little bit, you'll see him out there making good blocks. So hopefully we can carry that on to the regular season with him. So far, the guards have looked pretty good in the preseason. That is, in my opinion, at least Banks and Burford. But we just need to see it during the regular season, and we need to see less of the mistakes. And this offensive line is definitely a work in progress. At times, I almost think like, why don't we just fire this damn O line coach and move on to a different O line coach? Maybe we won't have the struggles that we always do every preseason. The O line is just like 10 steps behind the rest of the team. And then we have to wait till like game 5 for everything to gel. I don't know. It's kind of frustrating, but we always find a way to make it work some way, somehow.
I think they'll figure it out. I mean, I think what you said is that why some of the offensive linemen regress a little bit. I think it's a mix of a couple of different factors and variables. I think sometimes our offensive linemen aren't in their natural position. Like if you look at certain players, they'll out of college they'll be a guard, and then in training camp they'll be playing tackle. So they're not necessarily some players aren't necessarily playing their first position. And then certain players like School, I think School came off an injury, so School obviously isn't necessarily at 100%. So certain players are just playing out of position. Certain players are just coming off of injuries, and it's up to the O line coach to develop the offensive line. And the offensive line, I think, obviously we know for the most part the offensive line is fine in the run game, and I think Burford and Banks haven't been bad in the run game. But the biggest question mark is the pass blocking, and that's even with McGlinchey. The only guy that you can say for 100% you're not worried about either is Trent Williams, because he's the best offensive lineman in the league. But PFF have you? Kelt says PFF have you believe in Jimmy is elite.
They have their ways, man.
John says, did Debo even jump on that play? I don't think so. I think the defensive back just had amazing coverage. Not amazing coverage, but the defensive back didn't allow Debo to jump on that. And like I
Yeah.
said, 75% of the time, that would probably be called a pass interference.
I saw Grant Cohn tweet something like, "Oh, Samuel has still showed all camp long that he could not gain any separation on a deep route." And I was like, "Dude, he's freaking held on that play. What do you want? How much can you separate with the guy's grabbing you with his right arm? I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of funny."
Yeah. I mean, it's only preseason. And I mean, speaking of yesterday's game, before we jump on to the next topic, the Niners really didn't look like they came to play. And I think both of us can agree on that. The Niners didn't really look like they came to play. The Niners didn't have the greatest game plan coming into the game. From what I saw, they felt like, all right, we're playing the Texans. It doesn't matter. Let's just finish the game. Try to have the least amount of injuries as possible, and let's get it over with. Like, they didn't look like they came to play. The offensive game plan, you could say, wasn't the greatest either. It just didn't look like how you expect the Niners team to look like, or how it's looked like throughout the regular season last year, and how it looked like through the first 2 preseason games. It just didn't look like they came to play yesterday.
I agree. I agree. I forgot, was it the announcer? Some announcer I was listening to was just saying, "Oh, they might have been tired, and they did all these joint practices, and they're flying back and forth, and who knows what the excuse was." But I mean, who's going to be really amped up for the final preseason game? Now, don't get me wrong; there are people there fighting for jobs, though.
Yeah, those guys
If you're
obviously.
fighting for a job, though, you better bring your best, and some of them weren't. I mean, so I don't know. We might get into it later. I'm not sure what your further topics are. I was going to bring up somebody from the defensive side of the ball, but I'm assuming you have that ready for a certain topic. But back to the O line, I was going to say there's a lot of people out there who want Jason Poe to start over Banks. I'm not necessarily in that camp just yet. I was kind of hoping they would have prepped Jason Poe as a center. I heard he did play some of it in college, so I don't know. But I like his potential in general. He does some really good things, and who knows if McGlinchey can get healthy? I'm like one of the few guys who still thinks that McGlinchey plays a lot better than people say he does. Um, I'm kind of out on an island, and then some people take it as I'm saying McGlinchey's an all pro. I'm like, no, I'm not saying that, but it is what it is. But
Yeah,
his biggest issue
McGlinchey's
is he's
solid.
got to get on the field. He's got to get healthy.
Yeah, McGlinchey's solid. He isn't bad.
Yeah.
McGlinchey's a solid player when healthy. But let's talk about McGlinchey and the offensive line in general. How big of an issue do you think this offensive line is? We talked about it already in the beginning briefly, that this offensive line struggled mightily against that Texans pass rush, especially that tackles. I think Brendel played relatively well. He got a good PFF grade, and I know David doesn't like PFF as much. But then the interior guys, I thought they didn't play as bad as a lot of people were saying. But the tackles, like I said in the beginning, the tackles struggled, especially Jalen Moore. And then I think Colton McKivitz was out there. I think both of those guys struggled um, compared to the other guys on the inside and in the center. But how big of an issue do you think this offensive line is? Do you think the Niners have to go and get Isaiah Wynn or go and address that position at all before the season? Are you concerned at all about this
Yeah.
offensive line?
You said Isaiah Winner. Is that the guy from the Philadelphia Eagles that I keep
No,
hearing his name thrown
Patriots.
around? Oh, he's from the. Who's the guy from the Eagles? I heard there was some guy from the Eagles that was his name was being thrown around. I'd have to probably
Yeah,
look him
I
up.
think it's Justin Dillard.
Yeah, he's like the former first round draft pick, I think. And
Here's the
I
thing
haven't.
about Justin Dillard. Here's what I'll
Go
say
ahead.
about Justin Dillard. Is that that's the name that's been thrown around. But Justin Dillard got beat out by Jordan Mailata. And Jordan Mailata was a former rugby player, was undrafted, and he got beat out by a rugby player. Now, I'm not insulting rugby players by that statement, but when you're a first round pick and then you get beat out by a guy that plays rugby and doesn't even play football, you get what I'm saying? Like, that's not a great look.
Dude, when I saw what's his name, Jordan Mailata's film at the combine running the 40, and then when I saw his videos of just his rugby highlight, I know it's only rugby, but I was like, dude, this guy is a monster, a mountain of a man. He's 6'8", 340. He can move around like those guys who are almost like around 6'3", 280. I mean, he can move around for a huge guy. I'm like, and he fell all the way. I mean, obviously he's gonna fall because unknown commodity pretty much. He didn't play American football ever. But I was thinking, why don't the 49ers just get some huge big guy like that they could possibly develop? Lo and behold, the Eagles freaking develop him, and I think he's at an all pro level now, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, after his third year, if I'm not mistaken. So I was like, I'm just so jealous of the Eagles for them getting him and us not getting him. But yeah, maybe we do get one of those guys. Hopefully they help. I mean, I was kind of excited slightly about Jordan Mills because I heard that when we picked him up that he was pretty much beating everybody in one-on-ones his very first day in camp with the 49ers. And then his first preseason game against the Vikings, he lets people go by him like a freaking matador. You know, like it just sucks that when you see your offensive lineman doing that turnstile blocking, that Swiss cheese stuff, it does not fly with me at all. It's so frustrating to see, and it's like I feel like we're the worst. Oh my gosh, it just pains me thinking, reliving it in my head. I hopefully this is just a thing of the past, so we can move on from it. It's a concern though, but somebody said this though. Oh well, wait till during the season because 96 it says rugby players are people too. You know, I was just gonna say like somebody was saying, "Oh, wait till the regular season because Shanahan knows how to scheme things, and there's certain blocking schemes that we don't know about, and there's certain different schemes in terms of the offense that we don't know about." So we'll see. And even back to Trey Lance, we talked about Trey Lance earlier. I heard somebody say, I forgot who. Maybe it was Breezy. I think it was earlier on the Mariah show. I have rewound that and listened to him if I'm not mistaken. Maybe the person that said it's in the chat right now, who knows? But they said something like, if Kyle Shanahan was able to scheme Nick Mullins to pile up all those yards, or if he was able to scheme up Jimmy G with all his deficiencies, why in the world can't he scheme up Trey Lance in terms of what we're going to expect to see in this upcoming season? Assuming what they're saying is true, that Trey Lance has some deficiencies right now and he's not developed, he's not ready to go, and why can't Shanahan scheme around that if need be, you know?
Yep.
Sorry man, I went back to Trey Lance, but it just popped in my head. But I was also talking about the O-line too.
Yep. This O line, obviously, we said in the beginning, this O line didn't have their best performance yesterday. But the two names that weren't playing yesterday was obviously Trent Williams and then Mike McGlinchey. So obviously those two guys aren't playing. And when they do play, I think the offensive line will definitely be better with those two guys playing. With those two guys, hopefully if McGlinchey can be healthy, and then if Trent Williams, obviously if Trent Williams when he plays, I think this offensive line will definitely be better than what it showed last night. But I will say this: Burford, Banks, and Brendel have to play better, right? And I didn't think they played a bad game yesterday, but I think they can be better. And I think they have to work on trying to be better because we already know what Trent Williams can do. McGlinchey isn't bad if he can stay healthy. He obviously is our best option, and I think he's solid when he's healthy. But Burford, Banks and even Brendel, there's good parts about their game, right? Like I think Banks is great in the run game. I think Burford's also pretty good in the run game. But they have some. Still have to fix some things in the passing game and the pass blocking. And like I said, I don't think they had a bad game yesterday, but I think they can. There's definitely things that they can work on and that they can improve on. But overall, how big of an issue is this offensive line? I mean, I don't think it's that big of an issue. Now, obviously, if we have a major injury, like if Trent goes down or McGlinchey's out for the season, then I would be a little bit concerned. But just looking at it right now, if the offensive line, the starting offensive line would be, if the starting offensive line would be Trent, let's say Banks or Poe, but let's say Banks, Brendel, Burford, and McGlinchey, I think this offensive line will be fine. And as the season goes on, I think it'll become better. It'll get better.
And for the record, this is very important for those of you who aren't really familiar with offensive line. This is just good to know. McGlinchey, for example, I mean, who's the best player that's played next to him throughout his 49er career? Brunskill? I mean, never think of the offensive line as, oh, I'm going to plug and play this guy who's really, really good. I'm going to plug and play that guy who's really, really good. Think of it as one solid unit. You know, it's not like the D line where you can just constantly rotate guys and you don't skip a beat. Offensive line is different in that respect. So pretty soon we're going to possibly see McGlinchey out there with Burford, and it's going to be a step above from what McGlinchey's worked next to in the past. That's a big deal. So hopefully, we see that tandem working fine in unison. I'm pretty excited to see how much better Banks can look. I'm playing next to arguably one of the best players
Trent
in all
Williams.
of football. Yeah,
And that helps. And that
yeah.
helps, right? Because
Hmm.
yesterday he had Jalen Moore, and Jalen Moore continuously got beat. So on some part, like that also kind of makes Banks looks bad a little bit. So then everybody's like, "Oh, Banks and his offensive line, da 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 da," da," right? Where if you have Trent Williams right next to you, you have a guy that if you have any questions or you need help, or you have a guy that can give you advice on certain plays, or you just have a guy in Trent Williams that makes things so much easier for Banks, as if you were to have like Jalen Moore out there again in week one, or someone unexperienced, or someone not as good as Trent Williams. It definitely helps for him to have a guy like Trent Williams. And that's why, compared to the right side, I'm not as worried about the left side because you still have Trent Williams there. Whereas the right side, as much as McGlinchey, I think he's solid, I don't know how McGlinchey will be coming off that injury. I really don't. That's a question mark, right? And then with Burford, obviously, we don't know how well he'll be because he's obviously a rookie, so there's not too much film on him outside the preseason games and then the college tape. But compared to this left side, I'm more concerned about this right side because there's more question marks, I think, or at least the two guys that I'm uncertain about on that right side, or I don't know too much about, or how they'll be this season compared to that left side, where I already know one guy will be fine when healthy.
There was something I was going to say in regards to what you were saying earlier, but I forgot what it was.
And Swan Song, I definitely agree with you. Brendel was probably the best offensive lineman. He had 83 PFF grade, but yeah, he definitely was the best
Oh, I
offensive
remember. I
lineman.
remember what I was going to say. I was just thinking of one thing that they do in certain games is like, for example, if one side is kind of getting beat a bit more, one scheme in terms of blocking is like they slide the protection over to a different side, or you're gonna have help from Kyle Juszczyk from time to time. Helping with the pass blocking every now. I don't want to see it too much, but every now and then you may see George Kittle help out. Maybe Charlie Warner, assuming he's making a team. So there's different ways people can help, and we'll see. It'll be interesting when the season comes around. Hopefully, we'll have more good to say, and we're putting up points. And this was just all an afterthought at the end of the day.
Yep. And I want to pull up one of Swan's comments real quick. But 969 says it is always easier to help an offensive line when you game plan and scheme opposing defenses than when you don't during preseason games. That is true. But I want to pull up one of Swan's comments real quick. He said something about Isaiah Wynn. He was watching that Patriots game and he said Isaiah Wynn got beat twice in the first quarter.
You said
That
who
is
got beat
not
twice?
Isaiah Wynn. And Isaiah Wynn was a guy that was linked with the 49ers, or that was in
Oh,
49ers
yeah, that's right. I've been
news
hearing those names. Yeah, I
reports
haven't, I haven't
like
scouted those
in the
guys at
last
all.
couple of days.
I
I
haven't
haven't
scouted those
scouted
guys.
Isaiah Wynn also, but if he is getting beat, that's not great
And the
either.
guy
That's
from the
not.
Eagles might not be that bad. I mean, I'm just thinking of it from a wishful thinking perspective, but I mean, because Jordan Mailata stepped in and he's pretty damn good, dude. So maybe just because the guy lost his starting position doesn't mean he's necessarily a bad player, you know. So we'll see if we get one of those guys. Who knows, man?
That's a great
I
point. Swan says.
I'm still
Swan says.
disappointed in Jordan Mills.
There was some things about Jordan Mills. I heard that he was doing pretty well in training camp, but Swan makes a good point. If we did trade for Isaiah when that was happening, how much could you say? How much could you say that he was an upgrade over Burford? Because Burford we haven't seen, and then if he was getting beat, I mean, yes, 49ers fans would go insane because definitely would not be an upgrade. Kel says Burford went from being a beast and two holding calls later. I don't know. Man, the penalties yesterday also was just killer. And I mean, one team obviously penalties have a out can change, not change, but have an impact on the game. And the Niners definitely, I'm not too worried about it, but I think the Niners. I mean, could you really say that the Niners are a team that has a lot of penalties? Like, would you say that the Niners
I
are a
think we're
team?
pretty average. I never checked the stats on it. I could always look it up and pull it
I
up on
think we're
Google
pretty
and see.
average at it. Like, I mean, one team that
Yeah,
struggles is the Cowboys. Like, man, the Cowboys are like 17, I think, first preseason game. Like, they had a lot. The Cowboys struggle with penalties.
yeah. I mean, with the preseason game, I mean, it's not good to see, obviously, but have to think about how many moving parts you have on the field. I mean, so many different players interchanging, and sure, it was sloppy. It was sloppy. So of course, when you're in a sloppy little preseason game, and it's not going to look good, and but at the end of the day, there's just more continuity in a regular season game. You have more of the same players out there. You have your better players out there. Your more disciplined players out there, so to speak. So that shouldn't be a problem when the regular season comes around. I'm not sure. I mean, we kind of whiffed on a penalty after the Debo play that we missed on the pass because Malik Turner who had an amazing hit on special teams. I love seeing it, but he actually kind of did go helmet to helmet, and the refs missed that. But it is what it is. It's just
Yeah.
it's also preseason for the refs, right?
Yeah. I think Burford will be good as well. Swan said, I don't think Trent has ever played a full season without missing a game. Yeah, he hasn't. I think last year he also missed, I think, one or two games. Yeah, I forgot what was the stat, but it was a stat of like when the last time he played a full season, and it hasn't been since like I think 2016 or something like that. Like somewhere something similar to that. But he hasn't played a full season in a long time. That's what I know. He hasn't played a full season in
Yeah.
a very long time. But sticking with the topic of the offensive line, do you think the 49ers regret letting Laken Tomlinson walk?
Um, I don't. I mean, it would have been nice to keep him around. Maybe had they freed up the Jimmy G salary earlier, maybe they would have kept him. But at the end of the day, they did draft Aaron Banks, and I guess they were okay with him enough to be confident in terms of penciling him as a starter. And luckily, we got Burford, who's showing some upside. So, yeah, sure, it would have been nice to have him with. He had that great connection with Trent Williams, right? And we all remember that. So sure. I mean, hindsight's 2020. It would have been great to have held on to him. What's up? What's up, big place? Say how you doing? Uh, but at the end of the day, one thing I do like though, and I was unaware of this before, and I'm pretty sure early in Trent Williams' career or when we first picked him up, the rumor, what I heard around the grapevine was that Trent Williams wasn't about being a leader. Trent Williams wasn't really known for that. He was a great player, but more of somebody who led by example. But I've been here. I heard that he's been mentoring Burford. He's been mentoring
Yeah,
Poe.
but they worked out. They worked out in the
Yeah,
offseason.
he's been mentoring Banks. So, and who knows? That's great to have that rock. Not just a great player, an amazing player, but a guy who's like stepping up and taking that leadership role. Eventually, whatever he does and whatever he tells them, whatever he teaches them, it has to rub off on him. On them, apparently, he has to.
Yep. John says, well, what if this line craps the bed? Kyle and John will have to face the day where they wish they'd done more.
Hopefully, we don't get to that point.
Yep. Hopefully we don't, because, I mean, if we get to that point, it won't be great. And, I mean, from a fan's perspective, right? Because obviously, if the offensive line doesn't perform well, Trey Lance doesn't have enough time to throw the football. Trey Lance might get hurt. I mean, you just don't want to see that. And obviously, I'm looking forward to seeing Trey Lance this year. So obviously, the offensive line can't protect him. That has a higher chance of him that increases his chance of getting injured. So obviously, we don't want that to happen.
And as far as the penalized teams from the year in the 2021 season, the Dallas Cowboys were the most penalized team. And guess who number 2 was? Take a wild guess.
I feel like I should say the Niners, but
No, surprise, surprise! It was the Las Vegas Raiders.
hey,
So the
I I
Raiders.
I I went to the I went to Vegas over the summer, and that Raider Stadium is just phenomenal. Like that Raider Stadium from the outside, like it was outside of my hotel window. Like I literally had to move the curtain. It was right outside,
Oh,
and
we're at the
compared to
MGM or Mandalay.
Mandalay, and like it
Mandalay, I've
was
been there. It's nice.
yep, and Allegiant Stadium is just so, especially in the dark, like the way it lights up and everything, like
Yeah,
it's nice.
I
It's
heard it
nice.
looks nice. I heard it looks like Darth Vader or something, some Star Wars thing at night. You can ask Mariah; she lives over there.
Yeah.
She
I
sees it
I
all the
feel
time,
bad
probably.
honestly for like Raiders players because like I come out like I have like bags and everything. We came out of the airport, and right when we come out, like I'm sweating and I'm like, damn, it's hot. Like it's hot and humid in Vegas. Imagine having to wear pads or like wearing
Oh
helmet
yeah, but
and
it's a
running
dome,
hours
right?
during
It's a
committed
dome.
practices. That's
Oh,
difficult.
but the practices, yeah, you're right. You're right.
That's difficult in Vegas because it's hot and humid. Like and like
Yeah.
we wake up at 7 in the morning. When we were there, I woke up at 7 in the morning, and it's like 98 degrees. And then by the time it's like 1 o'clock, it's like 110, and it stays 110 until like all the way until night. Like it's hot and
I
humid.
I remember I was telling Mariah about because we were just talking to each other and I was just saying that like, oh, where I live we have a strong heat wave and some days it gets up to like 105 or 106 and she's like, yeah, but you guys for you guys at least it cools down at nighttime. She's all, for us it just stays the same temperature all throughout the
Yeah,
night. I was like, damn, I didn't know that. I guess, and I've been to
yeah,
Vegas multiple times, but I never thought of it that way. But I was gonna say this though, because actually I live in Roseville, which is, Roseville and Rockland are hand in hand. They're like basically sister cities. They're connected to each other. And the 49ers, if you're aware of this, for all 5 Super Bowls, their training camps were actually in Rockland. And over here, currently we've been experiencing this 3-month heat wave here. The temperatures here are just ridiculous. We don't get the humidity, but it is just so freaking hot here. I was like, I know, I guess that helped prep the Niners through with the Montana teams throughout the years to win, just that crazy training camp where they're just sweating their butts off. I could just imagine wearing pads and shoulders and pads and helmet and in this crazy weather. It's just it's so hot out here where I live.
yeah. It also gets hot in California, but not as hot
Yeah.
as my
And
cousin.
Brandon Ayuk also played his junior college ball over here, over at Rockland Sierra
Yeah,
College too. The same
my
school.
cousins live in Stockton. And in Stockton, it gets hot. Like in Stockton,
Yeah, the whole
it
Central
gets hot.
Valley.
Even at nighttime, it gets hot. I'm going back to an earlier comment that says that green screen is fire. I told
Which one, his or mine?
I don't know. I don't know that one we have to clarify. But I would like to give a shout out to my uncle because my uncle actually watched one of my streams, and my background wasn't the greatest, and he was like, "All right, let me get you a green screen," and he got a green screen, and he drove all the way from Stockton, and he came all the way to the Bay, and he like set up the green screen for me and went home. So I appreciate my uncle for doing that for me. Thank you. Just wanted to say thank you to him and give him a little shout out on stream for hooking me up with the green screen. I want
Shout
to
out
ask,
to Amin's uncle. Hang on, you
yeah,
want to
shout
see me
out,
without the
shout out
green
to
screen?
shout out to my uncle.
There
Um,
you go. That's my green screen right there.
I want to ask Big Play Slay because Big Play Slay's in the chat. What do you think of Andre? I think right, Andre Dillard. What's your thoughts on him? Your former first round pick offensive lineman. If he's still in the chat, what's your thoughts on him? Kelt said real quick. Kelt said my only true concern for the O line is right tackle, but then again, Shanahan made it work last year on 7-2 run with Compton, McKivitz, and Brunskill. He did make it work, and and Tom Compton has another contract. So let's move on to
If Tom Compton was able to get a contract, anything's possible.
did I talk about Lakin? Did I talk about my opinion on Lakin Tomlinson,
We
or
we
did I?
talked about Lake and the Jamaican. Oh,
I
by
don't.
the way, he lost a. I feel bad for Lake, and I was some tweet. I sent out a prayer to him. I believe he lost a child or an infant. I'm not sure. Really, really sad. Hate to ruin bring the mood down, but I think it's important since you mentioned his name. These guys are human beings too, so just send your prayers out to him and his family. I forgot exactly what happened. I'm pretty sure it was the death of a young child. It might have been his son. I just forgot the exact details.
Yeah, man, that's tough. All you could do is pray. It's hard, man. It's hard losing any family member in general, but losing your newborn, that's tough. Prayer sent to Lakin Tomlinson. Speaking on Lakin Tomlinson, it was just too expensive. They just couldn't bring him back. It was too expensive. Now, do the 49ers regret letting Lakin Tomlinson walk? I think it's too early to say that, because I don't think for me personally, I don't think I've seen enough. I think maybe we can determine that, like, 6, 7 weeks into the season, 7, 8 weeks into the season, we can maybe say, okay, either yes or no, the 49ers regretted letting him walk, but I think it's still too early to determine whether it was a mistake or not. Now, obviously, so far, it looks like that, but I still need to see a couple of more weeks with the starters out there, with Trent or McGlinchey out there, for me to make that claim of if it was a mistake or not. But it definitely would be nice to have Lakin on this team, because compared to last year's offensive line, this offensive line is way different. A lot of new faces, and that's the thing. Whereas Jimmy Garoppolo last year had obviously Trent Williams, Tomlinson, Alex Mack, Brunskill, and then Tom Compton. But this year you got a lot of new faces. But we'll see. But like I said, I think it's too early to say if it was a mistake to let him walk. So far, it's looking like that. But I think I think we need to see. I think for me personally, I think I need to see a little bit more for me to make that decision. Yeah,
Um,
man. Prayers up
yeah.
for
So when
Lakin Tomlinson.
I had to research it really quick. So he lost his daughter. Actually, I'm not sure exactly what date, what month is. I believe it was maybe this past month. I'm not sure, but she was only 18 days old, so I'm not sure exactly what happened. Just found the article for it, and I saw it going around Twitter, and just prayers up to him. Send your prayers out to Lakin. He's no longer a Niner, but still, we still guys got to shout out his family and send pray for them, because that's a really really difficult thing that they're going through. I can only imagine what they're going through right now.
Yeah, that's it's
It would
hard.
have been
It's
nice
hard.
to keep him. I liked him, but sometimes you just have to move on. It's a business; you can't keep everybody. But
Yep.
it is a risk, though. I mean, we've been talking about O line for quite some time. Well, this is funny, but you're going into a season with three new starters. I mean, that's not that's not ideal. I mean, that's like a huge weight to carry on Kyle Shanahan's shoulders. I mean, but if he pulls it off, hey man, shout out to him, and we'll see, man. And it is great to develop younger players and people with more upside. So we'll see.
Well, I asked Big Play Slay about Andre Dillard. I appreciate you for answering that question, Big Play Slay. He said Andre Dillard is okay. He needs to clean up on his footwork and leveraging against fast ends. And what makes it worse is we have the best O line coach in the NFL, and he's still not
I
good.
wish we had that O line coach. But I'll say this though, back to McGlinchey.
We
One
have
thing
the
they were
best D
doing,
line coach. I mean, we can't really,
yeah,
you can't ask for too much.
exactly, exactly. One thing they were doing when McGlinchey was healthy in practice, and Grant Cohn had brought it up, and they were putting Bosa on McGlinchey in a couple of practices, like have Bosa strictly rush against McGlinchey. Now he was beating McGlinchey from time to time, but there was times that McGlinchey was blocking him too. But that. But how often is Bosa gonna? Sorry, how often is McGlinchey gonna face guys who are just as good as Bosa in games? So that's just a great way to train and condition a certain player in order to get better for the regular season. So, this is a wooden desk, a real wood. Knock on wood, we fix this. If you want to carry on a different topic, we can, because we've been
Yep.
talking about O line, till
We've been talking
eternity.
about O line for a long time, but
Yeah,
we have the last two topics of the night. Let's talk about something that Adam Schefter said. Adam Schefter. Oh, before we talk about this next topic, Big Play Say said, "Do you guys want Andre Dillard?" I don't know if the Niners necessarily want him. It's just been a name that's been thrown around because of the offensive line struggles. At least yesterday, it's been a name that's been thrown around. So I'm not. I don't think we'll make a move for Andre Dillard, but it's been a name that's been thrown around. Same thing with Isaiah Wynn. It's been a name that has been thrown around there. Let's talk
we,
about
we
Adam
can give them
Schefter.
Sudfeld. We can give them Sudfeld, and we'll make Brock Purdy number two, and we'll take Dillard. How about that?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Purdy.
I've heard people say that before.
I know it's so
Yeah,
cheesy, but you can't help but do
it
it.
is. It is. pretty not good or pretty good, but
He's
um
pretty ugly.
let's talk about what Adam Schefter said real quick. Adam Schefter says that the 49ers could possibly keep Jimmy Garoppolo as the backup this upcoming season. Quick answer, yes or no?
Well, I could possibly win the Powerball. So, but I'm not. He said, no, we're not. We're moving on. Jimmy, you won games, however you want to say it, however people want to put it. We won games with you as our starting quarterback. Let's just say that. That is definitely more accurate. But hey, the ship has sailed. We're going a different direction. It's a business again. Had good luck with your new home, but we're gonna be going with Trey Lance from here on out. So I don't care what Schefter or anybody else says for clicks, likes, or whatever it is, ratings. Doesn't mean it's true. So see ya.
Yeah. Like, see, this is where it's tough, right? Because like I don't think you can keep Jimmy Garoppolo on this roster. Like I think obviously I've heard that there hasn't been any trade partners, but you just can't keep him on the roster. Like you just can't do it. Because the reason why you can't do it is because Trey Lance already has a significant amount of pressure on him, right? And having Jimmy Garoppolo obviously adds more pressure, but you are already, because he's the Niners quarterback. He's in his second year. The team is good. He has high expectations. He's already under a significant amount of pressure. But the reason why you can't do that is because if Trey Lance has a bad throw, or Trey Lance throws the interception, or Trey Lance doesn't beat the Rams, or Trey Lance, whatever the scenario or situation might be, if Jimmy Garoppolo's sitting on that bench, the national media will be like, okay, play Jimmy Garoppolo, and then there'll be a divide in that locker room. Because if the Niners aren't winning football games, or if Trey Lance is struggling, yes, there'll be people that'll still support Trey Lance, but then there'll be a little bit of a divide in the locker room that they'll be okay. Some players want Jimmy to start, and some people are like still okay with Trey and are rolling with the punches. Like it'll cause a divide in that locker room, and you can't have that happen. And then even in the national media, people will be like, "Oh, they have Jimmy, keep Jimmy, play Jimmy, play Jimmy." Like you just can't have that. You can't have that situation. And what Bill Belichick did last offseason, Mac Jones was playing well in training camp. Cam Newton gets COVID. But instead of keeping Cam Newton as an insurancy polish, if in insurancy poli
Insurance policy.
insurance policy. Thank you very much. I was getting confused on the word. Instead of doing that, he cuts Cam Newton because he realizes that if Mac Jones struggles, that causes a divide in the locker room. And if Mac Jones struggles, the fans will yell for Cam Newton's name. The media will want to say, "Why isn't Cam Newton starting?" It causes a divide, and it brings unneeded attention to your team. So that's what it was smart for Bill Belichick for getting rid of Cam Newton, and that's what the Niners have to do. You
Eh,
gave up picks for him. You gave up picks for Trey Lance. He's your quarterback. You roll with the punches. If he struggles, he struggles. If he plays well, he'll play well. You know that there's going to be times where Trey Lance makes rookie mistakes and he doesn't make, and he'll struggle a little bit. But there's also be times, I think, this season where Trey Lance will have deep touchdown passes and have crazy highlights and they'll have amazing plays. You just have to roll with the punches. You can't, and especially considering with the amount that you gave up to go and get and draft him, you just have to roll with the punches at this point. Whatever happens, we'll see, but you have to roll with the punches, and
You
you
have to
can't keep
develop
Jimmy Garoppolo
him.
on this roster.
You have to develop him. Who cares if you had this guy? If we had another quarterback who won games in the past, at this point, it's irrelevant. We gave up those picks. We spent all this time, telling Trey he's the guy for this upcoming season, and that's what we're gonna roll with. And if Trey has two bad games back to back, so be it. So be it. It's going to be a learning experience. He's going to learn from it. He's going to move on. And shout out to John V, bro. I know it's late for you,
I
brother.
appreciate you for tuning in,
Yeah,
John V. I appreciate you for tuning in the whole stream.
yeah,
Especially considering that it's the East Coast.
yeah, yeah.
I genuinely appreciate your support. Thank
We
you for
do.
tuning into the
Holding it
stream.
down in the state of
Yeah, thank you
Ohio,
for
of
tuning in
all
the stream,
places.
and thank you
Yeah.
for the kind words, and thank you for everybody for tuning in. We got Big Play Slay, who's an Eagles fan, also another content creator. Go check out his channel. We have Swan, Celts Chronicles. We have a lot. We have 12 people in here, so definitely appreciate the support. Obviously, enjoy the stream when you're talking to people in the chat, and the chat's also engaged with the stream. So it's obviously fun. But thank you, John B, for tuning in, especially since
One
it's the East Coast. Appreciate you for tuning in.
one more thing, since you mentioned the Adam Schefter thing, I saw on Twitter yesterday. We saw all kinds of garbage on Twitter yesterday, but this came from a content creator, 49ers Cast. If you guys know who he is, he said Trey Twitter is super quiet today, and he put like a disappointed smiley face or whatever. And I pretty much responded and tweeted it out as a response. I said, "This is the BS analysis. This is the BS analysis that we will face all season. They will hold Trey Lance to Joe Montana type standards, while the same people who held Jimmy Garoppolo to Jim Druckenmiller standards. Hashtag unrealistic." Real talk, man. It's like, don't get too ahead of yourselves, guys. I'm sorry. We saw when we saw Kyle Juszczyk running down the sidelines for an easy deep pass. The ball sailing like 10 yards out of bounds. Like, I didn't see you guys bringing that same type of energy to Jimmy, but yeah, Jimmy throws a little, short little pass to Kittle, and it bounces off of Kittle's hands, and you guys are saying that pass is horrible, and throw Jimmy G back in there. Like, give me a break, dude. Like, let's be realistic here. Trey Lance was a rookie last year, but he wasn't really, if it was a first year starter. He started 2 games in relief. That big deal. He needs to start a full season. He's going to have some bumps and bruises, but we're going to see a whole lot of wow plays that we didn't see in the past. And I'm excited for it. I'm ready. I can care less what anybody says. Yep. Hold on to Jimmy G. And it's ridiculous. It doesn't make football sense. It doesn't make business sense. We have to re-sign Bosa in the future, and we want that salary money to roll over for the next season. We have other people to sign in general. So.
Yep. And I appreciate Big Play Safe for tuning in. It's also 2 a.m. for him also down there. Right now it's 11 a.m. It's about to hit 11 o'clock down here in the West Coast. The West Coast, the best coast, down here
Big
in the Bay.
Play Slave.
That's a fire name. I can't even lie. That's a fire name.
That's why I said it the way I said it. You can't just say it with a normal voice.
Well, moving on to the last topic. We've already been rolling for 50 minutes. Appreciate you for doing this with me, Bashar. But season's about to start. 2 weeks away. What's the biggest? What would be a bigger concern? Jimmy Ward, obviously, he's out for 4 weeks. But week rolling in, what would be the bigger concern? Like, what's the bigger concern? Jimmy Ward's absence or Mike McGlinchey's absence? Especially looking at week 1, let's say, if one of these players weren't playing, we obviously know Jimmy Ward isn't playing, but who would you say is a bigger concern if they're not playing week 1?
Okay. Considering the fact that our pass rush on paper and what we've been hearing and seeing in camp and the preseason games, the glimpses, I'm dying to see Drake Jackson on the opposite end of Nick Bosa. All of that is just going to totally help the defensive backs. I think George Odom, I used to say Odin. I had his name wrong, but Odom, like Lamar Odom, the basketball player. I think he's a competent veteran to step in for the absence of Jimmy Ward. I really do. He picked off Kirk Cousins in practice, and he had another interception in the preseason game against the Vikings off of Kellen Mond. So I'm not really too worried about the safety position. Obviously, ideal situation, sure, you want Jimmy Ward back there. Your camera's going in now. Okay, there you go. You're back, bro. We did pick up Tayshaun Gibson. I have no idea how much playing time he's really going to get, assuming he makes a 53-man roster. So I'm not too, because that's another veteran presence. McGlinchey being out scares me a little bit. Trent Williams spoke kind of highly of McKivitz at one point, because he was talking in this offseason. He was saying that, Trent Williams told the media, he's like, I apologize. I think I should have sat out that game against the Rams. Now, you're a diehard. You got that dog in you. You want to be out in the field. You're going to say, screw it, man. I'm going to F it, man. I know I got this injury, but screw that. I'm going to put on my shoulder pads. I'm going to put on my helmet. I'm going to be out there in the field and fight through this injury, and let's win this game, because we're about to go to the Super Bowl. That's the heart, and the passion you want out of your, all-pro, all-world tackle. But at the same time, he just was not himself that game. We know it, everybody knows it. That injury totally derailed him all throughout the game. And he told me that, hey, you know what? Maybe I should have just sat out the game and had Colton McKivitz start in front of me. And when he said that, I was thinking, okay, it looks like he has some confidence in Colton McKivitz. Maybe he's not as bad as people say. I forgot what game it was, but Colton McKivitz did play. What game was it? Was it the Texans game, or was it not the Texans game? Was it the Rams game, the final regular season game that we had, where McKivitz played at left tackle, I believe? I know one of those games McKivitz played, and he didn't do all that bad. He had to go up against Von Miller and a few other guys. So, you know, it's weird. We stress about the O line so much, but there's times where these guys just step in and they just blend in, and you don't see them, letting their guys go and letting the quarterback get hit 20 times. And if you don't bring up their names while you're watching the game, it's a W for that player. It really is. So, but of course, I'm more worried. With that said, I am a bit more worried about the absence of McGlinchey. So, because we do got some veteran safeties that we can plug
Yep.
in, and the pass rushes should be
Yep.
elite.
You gave a great answer, but to make it short and simple and sweet, um, it's Mike McGlinchey. This Niners defense has been a strong point for the last couple of years now, and a lot of people, to credit Kyle Shanahan and his whole team for what they were able to do last year and in 2019, but a lot of their success is because of that defense and how dominant that defense is. And already we've been hearing a lot of things about this defense. You added Travarius Ward in free agency, and I said this last stream. From a talent perspective, this Niners defense is number one in the NFL. From a pure talent perspective, right? We'll see what happens with injuries and everything like that. But from a pure talent perspective, this Niners defense is just amazing. Three great linebackers, amazing depth at the D line position, good corners, and then when Jimmy Ward's healthy and Talano Hufanga, who has a lot of talent, from a pure talent perspective, that whole defense is just great. But that offensive line already with the struggles, not having a guy like Trent Williams, not having a guy like Michael Glinchey out there, it's worrisome, right? Because I'm still not, at least with that defense, I'm not as worried because I know the defense still has a lot of dogs on that defense. And I'm not saying that the offense doesn't, but this offense was already struggling, and not having a guy like Michael Glinchey and might possibly playing a guy like Colin McKivitz or Justin School, it's definitely concerning, right? Especially week one, it is a little bit concerning compared to that defense where if you don't have Jimmy Ward, obviously it hurts your defense, but it doesn't hurt as much as if you didn't have Mike McGlinchey. So to make it short and simple, I would say Mike McGlinchey's absence is a bigger concern than Jimmy Ward's. And I wanted to answer a couple of questions real quick in the comments. Corey Davis, real quick, he popped in. I appreciate you for tuning in. Also, Corey Davis, hope
What
you're
up,
doing
Corey?
well. Amin the Dream and 49er Minded. Hello, how are you guys doing? I'm doing great, Corey. Thanks for asking. Thank you for tuning in. Um, Big Play Slay had a question about Jaquaski Tart that I want to answer, and then we're done with the show. I'm not a fan of Jaquaski Tart or Jaquiski Tart from the tape I watched. What y'all think? He's a solid safety. He's a solid safety, but the only thing that I would say that's been a thing with Jaquaski Tart is that he gets injured, and he usually plays around like 8 to 9, 10 games every season. But he gets injured. He gets injured. At least for the most part, I've seen him. He gets injured, but he's a good player. He's a good player, and a lot of people look at that dropped interception. But he's a solid player. He's a good player, but he does get injured. He tends to get injured and miss a couple of games every season.
So with Tart, one thing that he's really good at doing, he can play. He can do man coverage. He's really nice at man coverage for a strong safety. Obviously, his Achilles heel is he doesn't stay on the field. He gets hurt. But another thing is just the lack of the big play. You don't get the big play. His instincts are not ideal. Now we bring in a guy. There goes Amin. I don't know if he's coming back. Don't worry, I'll pick up the slack. But there's Talano Hufanga, who we have in there, who isn't the fastest strong safety. Obviously, he didn't run. He didn't wow anybody at the combine, but Hufanga gives you that. He gives you that instinct. He has that knack for the big play. He's gonna pick up that loose ball and run it in for the touchdown after Jordan Willis blocked that punt. That punt block that went sky high in the Packer game. So so it's good to see that we picked up Hufanga, and we have some other safeties in the mix. More obviously with his defense, even back to the defense, he asked about Tart, but I think Tart might do some things for you guys. He's not a bad player. It's just that obviously he may drop an interception from time to time. He may get hurt. As far as our corners on our defense, I'm really excited because we didn't have any significant cornerbacks last year. I'm just doing this by myself, guys. This is fun. I'm sure he'll be back. And we didn't have any quarterbacks last year yet. We gave up the third least points in the whole NFL on defense. And that tells you something. This is weird. It's a 49er Reminded show on the Amin the Dream channel. What's going on here? I'll wait for him to message me on Twitter so let's see what he says. Well, this is too funny, man. Let me see what else is going on in the chat, guys. Who is in here? He said, "Nah, you said it right the first time." That was. You know what? I can't put comments up on the screen because I'm not the one who generated the stream. But I'll read some cool questions and comments if you guys have them. I'm waiting to see. Where's Amin at, man? This is too funny. What else we got going on in here? Okay, it's more of a conversation in here. I'm waiting to see what. Oh, there you go. Kel's Chronicles is when I was talking about Odom, the safety we had. He said, "At least you didn't say Greg Oden. How I slip up sometimes, shaking my head. I know, right? That guy was a total bust." Yeah, obviously there's plenty of McGlinchey talk in the chat. The offensive line is a huge concern. Okay, here. I think, I was trying. It was the 49er Minded show on, the Dreams channel for
I apologize.
a solid minute.
Okay, my laptop was dying.
I've been there, done that.
On me, and then
I always have my laptop plugged in when I do these streams because I always fear that it's going to die.
See, and then I run, and I'm like looking for the charger all around the house. And today was the first day that I took my laptop to school, and I'm like, where's my laptop charger?
That's what you were doing.
Charger? And then I realized, like, I'm looking in my room, I'm looking in the living room, and then I realized it's in the room that I'm streaming in. It's just on the floor, and I'm like, great.
Yeah, I've been there, done that. You'll run around the whole house trying to find whatever. I'll look for my wallet, and lo and behold, my wallet's just sitting in my room, and I wasted like 30 minutes of my day trying to find my wallet.
Yeah. I mean,
it happens to the best of us.
It does. But I appreciate you for joining me. That basically wraps up the show. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Big Play Slate, Kelps Chronicles. Yes, Womack. Womack.
Who's the Mac?
Womack looks like a steal so far. He looks great. Starting nickel corner looks great. But appreciate everybody in the comments. Obviously, we had a lot of great stuff in the comments. A lot of great interaction in the comments. Had 10 people watching the stream right now and had 10 people throughout the whole stream. So obviously appreciate the support. Means a lot to me. If you haven't already checked out Bashar's YouTube channel, 49er Minded, which has the best intro in 49ers YouTube content creation, go check that out. You don't it's worth it. You don't need all you have to do is watch the first 30 seconds.
Just watch the intro and you can just turn the show off and go watch Grant Cohn or something.
Yeah, just watch the intro. You'll love the intro. That part, that part it's guaranteed that you'll enjoy the intro. But if you haven't already checked out 49er Minded's channel, go check him out at 49er Minded. That link is in the description for his YouTube channel. Go show him some love. I think you're close to reaching 600 subscribers, or you already hit 600 subscribers.
I don't think I've hit it yet, but I'm close.
But you're close to hitting 600 subscribers. So go subscribe to his channel. Get him to 600 subscribers. I know he would definitely appreciate that. And follow him on Twitter at 49er Minded.
Can I say something really quick?
Yes, go ahead, man.
Get me to 2,000 subs.
I had to say it.
That was nice. I can't even lie. How'd you do that? I don't know if that was like.
There's a effects processor built into this microphone. You can do all sorts of things with this.
That was nice. Hey, Bryant, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. I know it's late. Thank you for tuning in. Your support obviously means the world to me. Like and subscribe, share with everyone. Yes, and then follow 49er Minded on Instagram. That link is also in the description. YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. All 3 links are in the description. Go check them out. Hit them with follows and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you like what you're seeing on this channel right here, go subscribe to my channel. That would, mean a lot to me, and I would appreciate it. Like this video. That basically wraps up the show. 2 weeks until the season starts. Looking forward to it. Trying to get on more guests. But we'll be back on Tuesday, though. We'll be back on Tuesday with Randon, hopefully. But that basically wraps up the show. I appreciate everybody for watching. Go 49ers, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Go Niners.